I'm your cult boyfriend. My name is Zach. We're talking about La Vérité today, directed by Clouzot. It's my favorite Clouzot. Clouzot is not someone I would call a master, um, but La Vérité is the closest thing, otherwise known as The Truth, starring Brigitte Bardot, who we're going to be talking about a lot in this video. She was extraordinary in this film. Essentially, it's one of the best courtroom dramas you will ever watch. It's a lovely thriller, a murder mystery, but at its core, at its poetic, philosophical, um, at its most cinematic core, the film is about the youth being put on trial by the hypocritical nearly dead. Brigitte Bardot, of course, is one of the most famous sex symbols of all time, and in the 60s, in the year 1960, when this movie came out, she definitely represented a new and emerging form of femininity that was dangerous, that was very, very direct, very forward, incredibly sexy, and scandalous, completely scandalous. These kind of bohemian, artful girls who make self-destruction seductive, sleeping around, living life to its absolute fullest, and of course, then some. Excessive, eccentric, and exceptional women. Um, Bleach blonde, amazing lips, and the kind of figures that could drive any man insane. And Brigitte Bardot definitely does that. So the film should really be viewed, in my opinion, as the new and emerging sexuality of young women in the 60s being put on trial and condemned by a panel of masculine, of course, patriarchal, like hypocrites, people who've never lived and never loved and never could possibly understand. I think, well, my favorite character in the film is Dominique, played by Brigitte Bardot, and an incredible performance. Her acting is always kind of forgotten when people speak about her, which is completely understandable. Because she was a goddess, right? But with La Verite, we can really talk about how exceptional she could be as an actor, as a performer. So much emotion, so much mystery, and so much. Beyond glamour. I just loved being within her atmosphere. Cinema loves her. Brigitte Bardot is one of the defining characteristics of cinema, for sure. She really sealed her legend with films like La Verite and Contempt, of course. Another character that interested me a lot was her friend who they would have talks about planning their suicides and like choreographing their suicides because the performative hypocrisy of their patriarchs, as exemplified in the court scenes that seem to really denunciate the deification of scandal in the 60s French world, and I guess in our modern world, right? Um, that sort of hypocritical, performative theatricality has been appropriated by the youth in self-destructive ways. And this friend of Brigitte Bardot's, of Dominique's, they talk about how they need to plan their suicides, how it's for an audience, how it's always to reject or rebel against something or someone, and you really need to consider how your suicide will go, or else you will be an amateur. It's really dark, but I think, and it's really twisted, but I think it's really fascinating. But he goes up on the stand, and at least in my opinion, he really, I think this is the film's raison d'etre. Dominique was sincere. Not one of those society ladies in their mink coats, juggling husband and lover while they moralize to others. Dominique spurned the hypocritical morality of our parents. That's why she's here. You're all older, you wouldn't understand. She should be judged by young people. Right or wrong, we think differently. So I think this is Clouzot at his most radical, beyond postmodern, um, nearly anarchic in quite a few considerations. Because the film is so desperate. This film is so fucking desperate, and it's fatal, it's lethal, it's deathly serious. Clouzot is taking this trial of youth, of young, beautiful, sexually active young girls, sexually liberated young girls. He's taking the trial incredibly seriously because maybe it was an incredibly serious manner, but also I think because he's trying to make a horror film of sorts, or at least a suspense film in the same kind of vein as Diabolique, right? I think that La Verite is operating on a lot of different levels. It operates on that philosophical or political one, of the sexually liberated woman being put on trial simply for being a woman who men just wanted to tame and went out of their way to hound. And it's also making it's stating a lot of things about women in captivity, whether in captivity by a hypocritical patriarchal state or in captivity of a lover because she's on trial for killing her lover Gilbert and then trying to kill herself. Gilbert was cruel. He was abusive, both psychologically and physically, and held her within captivity once he was able to experience her intimately. Like Brigitte Bardot, every man is scared of her. Every old, decrepit, useless, zombified man within that courtroom is scared to death of her because she makes their dick feel funny, and because they think that she is so sexually liberated, but that's not true at all. She may be sexual, but she was never liberated. She was always held in captivity by men, even men of her own age, who never understood what liberation actually meant. They kind of projected the liberation onto her. She was sexual, but she was never liberated. The liberation is just another tactic that hypocritical and fraudulent male egotism puts on women that they can't come to terms with, that they can't wrap their minds around. So Gilbert and so many other people thought that this woman was just fierce and wild and crazy, when in reality she was being held captive by those same abusive men who fantasized about her and conquered her. Like, it can get pretty complicated and in a really cool and sophisticated way, but it's operating on another level as well that I'm not sure if Clouzot is actively. I don't think he's actively condemning Dominique at all. I think he's on Dominique's side, but it's a bit too melodramatic, right? It's a bit too deathly. Um, because he's still using the language of suspense, which he is so capable of. He's an expert of suspense cinema, of suspense filmmaking. So we are still dealing with the trappings of genre, where I think that maybe a more sincere approach would be better suited for the optics, for the general atmosphere of the piece. But when Brigitte Bardot is the center of your cinematic atmosphere, you can't miss at all. I hate that I am such an easy mark, right? I am such a fucking guy. Um, I mean, I like that I'm a guy, but I I I'm smart enough to at least know when I'm being played, but it's so effortless and I can't help it. I I had so many impure thoughts watching Bardot in this film. Clouzot knew what he was doing. Brigitte Bardot knew what she was doing. I had so many impure thoughts that I should be institutionalized for the rest of my life. Brigitte Bardot had me wrapped around her finger. I was hypnotized. She's fucking so sexy. It's hypnotic. The only thing I can think of to compare it to is the way that Polanski used Catherine Deneuve in Repulsion, by weaponizing Deneuve's virginal beauty to lash out at the invasiveness of my male gaze, which Polanski brought upon the film. Like, he made me do it, you fucking asshole. Same with this. Same with this. It's not like Clouzot is presenting Dominique in these situations that are criminal. right? He's just allowing the toxicity of my fucking mind to invade on this woman, you know? It's like what I just said. Like, she's sexually liberated, but I was holding her captive within my own fucking fantasies as well as a viewer. And that's when you get to something that is truly awe-inspiring about the film, because it implicates you within the hypocrisy of the scandal, of the spectacle of the trial itself. And then you realize that you too have held her in captivity, and that you too wish that you could possess her when she is not something that should be possessed, because she's a sexually liberated woman, isn't she? That's what she's on trial for, after all, in a philosophical sense. But she's not liberated if you're holding her captive inside of your fantasy and inside of your desires, right? Brilliant work on, like, Clouzot. I don't think you have to really try to film Bardot well in the 60s. You know, she's just perfect no matter what you do. But Clouzot definitely found perfect ways to film her, like really inspired ways to film her. And Bardot, it takes more than just standing there with a vacant look on your face. She is running the gamut of these like mysterious and attractive and cinematic expressions and emotions. Like this is quite a powerhouse performance, because when she takes the stand for the last time, and she's screaming at them like, you don't understand me because you're dead, all of you are dead, you've never lived and you've never loved, that's why I'm here. Okay, I wanted to kill myself and I accidentally killed him, or I did kill him. What, it doesn't matter. The youth understand, you don't understand. And it's such a huge moment. And she could be as sexy as she wants to be. If she wasn't also a phenomenal actor, that scene would have fallen flat. Therefore, the entire film would have ended on a minor key. It's perfect. This film is fucking, yeah, yeah. La Verite is an intensely good film that I really, really respect. Like, I love films like this. Would be a great pairing with Repulsion, because both films use their suicide blondes to implicate the male viewer in the destruction of its lead. And I think that that's kind of fascinating. And I like when cinema uses the tools that is natural only to cinema itself to condemn something within the viewer that is impulsive, right? Something that you almost can't control. And I think that's when a film can be at its most horrifying, or at its most thrilling, by exposing something within you, the viewer, that you're really uncomfortable with about yourself. Like, I was constantly sexualizing Brigitte Bardot, because in several scenes, Clouzot did it so effortlessly, and then I couldn't get it out of my mind. I mean, she's sexualized for at least for a lot of the film. I mean, she's blatantly sexualized. And then you find that even in scenes where she is pitiable, where she is just like about to fucking kill herself, you've been conditioned by Clouzot's composition and by Bardot's constant availability within the erotic performance that she was giving, that even at her most dire, at her most distressed, on the verge of suicide, or while she's actually killing herself, you've been conditioned to sexualize her. So that's what you do in that moment. All film goers, all cinephiles belong in straitjackets, and movies like La Verite perfectly illustrate why, and it does it effortlessly. My heart goes out to Dominique. Um, I'm so sorry for everything. And Brigitte Bardot, this is one of the finest performances of the 60s. And Clouzot is a fucking dick. Okay, let's not just be nice to him this entire time. He's a fucking dick. He had a habit of slapping actresses on sets to get them to do what he wanted them to do. He was like a tyrant. He was very dominating. But Brigitte Bardot is a fucking badass. He went up to her, he tried that slapping shit on her, and she punched him in the face stomped on his fucking toe. Because, man, because fuck you, Clouzot. Clouzot wanted things done in a really weird way. Like, he wanted you to he made it seem like what he wanted you to do was to conform to his vision and not ask any questions. But what he actually wanted you to do was to rebel, but to rebel in a way that surprised him, or in a way that he wasn't prepared for, but in a way that transcends the material itself, which just sounds also psychologically abusive on top of being physically abusive. But that sort of treatment, that sort of method of directing, we'll call it, uh, it made for a great work. It made for a great film, okay? But at least this film features a woman who wouldn't take any of his shit and rebelled at every opportunity, really making her character Dominique feel so real and so inspired. And then the sympathy that Clouseau offers compositionally to Dominique, it makes it feel all the more real, all the more sincere in spite of its genre limitations. Great film. Thank you for watching my video. I've been your cult boyfriend. Have a great day, okay? Thanks for watching, dude.